Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about Brandon Marsh's big day and why it was such a huge part of the Philadelphia Phillies taking down the Tigers and winning that series. So why it's really good to see Brandon Marsh do well. There's multiple reasons. Also, more injuries. Spencer Turnbull had to leave the start today with some shoulder issues. He had a very strange explanation for why he may have been injured and what could happen for the Phillies as a result. We're also going to take a look back at the trade that sent Matt Vierling to Detroit and maybe if you would do it again or not. All of that on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I am Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for checking us out today on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that stuff that really helps us out here. Locked On Phillies is the number one place for you to get daily Philadelphia Phillies content. We're the only daily podcast covering this team this way, and they are the best darn team in baseball. So go ahead and lock in on Locked On Phillies and subscribe to the YouTube. All that other great stuff. Today's episode is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Well, don't wait to do that. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Just call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. The Philadelphia Phillies went out and took care of business today, this afternoon, I guess, in the series ender against the Detroit Tigers. After dropping the game last night against Tarik Skubal, you kind of had a feeling that this game was not going to go the same way. Skubal's amazing. Like what he did last night against the Philadelphia Phillies lineup is a feat that is rarely accomplished by any pitcher in baseball this year to shut this team down the way he did. It happens. You run into a hot pitcher. Ranger Suarez wasn't bad last night. You just lose that game. So that made today's game significantly more important because you can't drop a series to the Pirates. I told you, see, this is why you listen to Locked On Phillies, because I told you coming into this series, like Detroit isn't a pushover. They're not the Detroit Tigers of past years where it's just like, okay, you're going to go in there and smoke them. Now, they're not a good baseball team, but they're just not like a dreadfully bad one. So they can have games where they cause headaches for you. They're not going to scare you ever, but they can cause headaches for you. And game 2 was a headache. Game 3 was, I guess, aspirin or Advil or Tylenol or whatever you take for that. And a lot of that had to do with Brandon Marsh. Now, early on in the season, I was big time on the Brandon Marsh hype train. I thought it was going to be an all-star year for him. It still may be, depending on how much the fan vote actually gets factored into everything, because basically every Philadelphia Philly player is high up in the fan voting. But he's really dropped off, and he had a little bit of time on the injured list, but I don't think that's what it was. He hasn't really earned his spot as a everyday player in the eyes of the manager, in the eyes of the president of baseball operations, just in the eyes of the whole organization. So he's been resigned to being a platoon player, and I don't agree with that. I really don't. I think Brandon Marsh is an everyday player. Now, part of the reason I think that he's been a platoon player is because the outfield's been in such a weird spot. They're trying to find anything that works out there. Kyle Schwarber played in the outfield a couple days ago. He should never be out there. That shows that they just need to switch some things around to figure it out. But this is more a commentary on the overall outfield status of the Philadelphia Phillies. You look at it and you say, okay, Castellanos is going to play right every day. No idea who's in center. No idea who's in left. Was it going to be Rojas? Well, maybe, but he's sent down. Pache, he's hitting below 200. Marsh can't hit lefties according to the Phillies. Now, I think he can hit lefties, but he hasn't been consistent enough. David Dahl started the season in AAA, got called up, and not really an everyday player. Whit Merrifield, hugely disappointing. Like, who in the world do you play out there? It's just kind of – I don't think Brandon Marsh has stood out in an offense in an outfield where it would have been pretty easy to stand out. That is why, even though I really like his ability, I think I would play him every day. I am not surprised that the Philadelphia Phillies aren't doing that. But maybe they need to reconsider after today, because this is not a oh, why isn't Brandon Marsh good? No, this is supposed to be why did he have a great game? Listen to this. 4 for 4 out of the 7th spot in the lineup. Also a home run scored. He had 4 RBIs in a game where the Phillies only scored 6 runs. He beat the Detroit Tigers basically by himself. The Tigers only scoring 2 runs. One of those came in the 9th inning in kind of like a mop-up situation for Jose Alvarado. It was really great work. And Brandon Marsh, like, to hit the ball out of Comerica Park, you have to get it. There are very few cheap home runs at any spot in that ballpark, and he went the opposite way. This dude has shown he's got pop. He just doesn't show it consistently enough. Like, it's the same as plus offensive ability. The analytics love him. The advanced metrics love him for short periods of time every season. What you can count on every season for Brandon Marsh is there's going to be a month where it's just like it's him and Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani at the top of baseball when it comes to like exit velocity and barrel percentage and stuff like that. And the eye test kind of evens it in those times. The problem is when he's not on one of those stretches, he's pretty darn cold. So I don't know what you do with Brandon Marsh. I would play him every day. I don't know what the Phillies do, but he had a great game today. He puts you in great position to win. He's a great locker room guy. Like there's no question that Brandon Marsh makes this baseball team better. Just looking at some other stuff that happened in the game offensively, and we'll talk about the bullpen a little bit too, but more of that's going to come up in the second segment. Kyle Schwarber 1 for 4, Trey Turner 2 for 5. You love that for the top. Bryce Harper 1 for 4. He extends that hitting streak. Nick Castellanos 1 for 4 with a run scored and an RBI. He stays hot. Bryson Stott, you love to see this. 1 for 3 with 3 runs scored. He also had a walk reach on air. Like, love that. David Dahl, 1 for 3. Garrett Stubbs, 1 for 4. There was only one guy that went hitless in the game, and it was Alec Boehm, 0 for 5. Other than that, the Philadelphia Phillies, 12 hits. They just had like 15 hits the other day. This team is starting to become more consistent as far as everybody contributing. And guess what? This isn't even your best lineup. Once JT Realmuto gets back, once you add somebody at the deadline in the outfield, like, yeah, this team is good and they're getting better and they're going to continue to get better and they're going to make acquisitions at the deadline because they have a top-level front office executive running things in Dave Dombrowski. They're in a great spot, except for one place. The health of the starting rotation is starting to get a little bit nerve-wracking here. Spencer Turnbull started this game, and unfortunately, he left after 3 innings with shoulder, arm soreness. He said it was between the back of his shoulder and the tricep. So not an ideal spot to feel pain if you were a professional pitcher. We'll talk about that in the second segment, what that means. But he was out early. So here's what the rest of the game looked like for the Philadelphia Phillies. They had 6 innings they needed to account for with the bullpen. Luckily, the bullpen hadn't been highly taxed the past couple games. But you got a 4-game series with the Marlins coming up starting tomorrow. You don't want to burn guys out. You had to try and find a way to win this game. Not so much burn them out, but use a bunch of guys in the bullpen. So it starts with Greg Soto, who goes out there in a place he used to play, Detroit, had a rough outing last night. Well, tonight he goes an inning, strikes out 2, looks a lot more comfortable. Jose Ruiz ends up getting the win. He goes an inning, strikes out 2. You're going to notice the theme here. Matt Strahm comes in next. Goes an inning, gives up a hit, doesn't allow anything. No strikeouts, actually, which is weird for Matt Strahm. But then Ryan Kirkring comes in. Clean inning. No strikeouts, no walks, no hits, no nothing. Jeff Hoffman, clean inning. No strikeouts, no hits, no walks, no nothing. The Philadelphia Phillies went from the 4th inning to the 8th inning with just allowing, 1 hit, no runs, striking out 4. Like, that's a monster bullpen effort. Like, I don't think you understand how hard that is to do, to toss 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys out there and say, yeah, you're all going to go through clean. Only one of you is going to allow a hit, and he may be the best of you with Matt Strahm, where's ERA's at. No one's going to allow a run. No one's going to allow a walk. Like, that's amazing. Now, Jose Alvarado, we gave up a run in the 9th. He gave up 2 hits, so that's where the streak ends. That's why he wasn't included in that grouping, but we know Jose Alvarado's fine. It was a mop-up spot. It was 6-1 when he came in the game. I'm not worried about Jose Alvarado. He had a strikeout. He closed the door. They're totally fine. This bullpen is starting to look like, remember that graphic that came out ahead of the season where it had them listed as the number 1 bullpen in baseball? You're starting to see why they had belief that the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen could be that. And as we get really caught up in the outfield acquisitions potentially at the deadline, don't forget, every darn contending team is going to add an arm. Some will be in the starting rotation. Some will be in the bullpen. The Philadelphia Phillies will absolutely add to the bullpen. So it's going to get even better. I'm not saying it's going to be a Mason Miller from Oakland. I'm saying it's going to be a serviceable veteran arm that's probably got like another sub-2.5 ERA to throw in here with the bullpen. Has just been good all year. There's plenty of those guys. They grow on trees. You can go poach one from a team that's not going to be competing in October, and that's a great thing. So outside of the Spencer Turnbull deal, and I guess he was replacing a injured, quote unquote, pitcher in Taijuan Walker, things are good in Phillies land. But we're going to talk about that one, we'll call it a hot spot, because that's how they describe Taijuan Walker's issues with his finger and not throwing his splitter when he went on the injured list. The hot spot for the Philadelphia Phillies right now is that fifth spot in the rotation. And we have curse accusations. It's going to get interesting as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. First, though, let's talk about eBay Motors. Come on, you know what eBay Motors brings you. Passion, drive, and patience. Those are the keys to winning championships. And it's also what keeps your vehicle alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, or you could level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, everything you need to improve your vehicle, build the car you want. Well, they got that and more. They've got you covered. If you're into speed, power, style, they've got all of it. Over 122 million parts for your vehicle. You're always going to find exactly what you're looking for at eBay Motors. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. That's a great guarantee. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. I also want to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn. LinkedIn does some great work with their Sales Navigator. If you're not sure what that is, well, hey, you're going to want to listen up to this, because LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. So if you're struggling to close deals, business-to-business selling is tougher than ever. And that's why this exists, right? Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should priorities, and they show you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Basically, it tells you the easy way to do sales. Don't we all want to take the easy way in life? Well, as long as it works, and trust me, LinkedIn Sales Navigator works. It's fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, so they have a lot of data in there. Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. So go ahead and check it out. And right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day, that's 2 months, free trial. You can go ahead and test it out. You get plenty of time to figure out if this works for you. I believe it will. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and you can get started. All right, let's talk about, I hate to be doing another, this is an injury show type of conversation. This one feels less worrisome, obviously, than Trey Turner or JT Realmuto, guys that have missed significant amount of time. But what I will say is it's not ideal when you have Taijuan Walker struggling, and then you think you have an answer in the bullpen in Spencer Turnbull. And you say, wow, he's been really good as a starter. We've been clamoring for this move. The Phillies finally make this move after hearing me say last week on this podcast that was the final straw. So thank you very much for listening, Phillies organization. Appreciate it. If you want any other roster tips, I am available for a small fee. But what I'm saying is it sucks that you have Taijuan Walker go down. I say that in quotes because I think the hot spot is somewhat fabricated. I do. I've theorized that many times on this podcast. Taijuan Walker came up with a reason, or the Phillies came up with a reason to put him on the injured list so that he doesn't have to be like sent down or anything to change the spot in the rotation. He doesn't have to be moved to the bullpen. That's the whole theory on why I think Taijuan Walker was removed due to injury from the rotation for at least this start. But Spencer Turnbull goes out there and he only throws 3 innings. and then all of a sudden he feels pain in his shoulder or the between your shoulder and tricep spot. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'll show you where that is on the arm because I've had that. Got to figure out how to get it on the camera. It's this spot like right in between. So right at the top of the arm here is kind of where your triceps connects to your biceps up there, and it also connects down or connects to your shoulder and your biceps at different ends of that muscle there. So when you get it up by the shoulder, it's one of the pain points of the triceps. It could be a strain, it could be a tear, could be tendonitis, could be anything. So we don't know. It's scary to hear pitchers talk about shoulder or back of the arm soreness or any soreness surrounding their arm, especially when you just move that guy back into the rotation. This opens up a lot of conversations. First and foremost, do the Phillies deserve fault for this? They went with Spencer Turnbull as a starter to start the year. They knew he'd had injury issues and had not been able to pitch many innings. You move him to the bullpen out of necessity because you're going to move Taijuan Walker back in. But he already had pitched a lot of innings, and then you move him back to the starting rotation. Not that he was super stressed out today, I should say, by his pitch count. I mean, how many pitches did he even throw? I want to get the exact number for you. Through 36 pitches, so it's not crazy. I mean, I imagine he's thrown like 36 or close to it in relief appearances, so that's not too nuts. I don't think it's the Phillies' fault at all. Like, I don't think there's any way you could predict this. I don't think they've handled Spencer Turnbull poorly. This is why I've always urged caution, but I don't think they've done anything wrong. This is just case in point of like, you got to protect guys who have shown that they don't have the arm to make it through an entire season being healthy. That's just the nature of doing it. It seems to be a prudent thing for me. Some people called me crazy, saying, "Oh, you don't have to protect him from himself. He says he's good to go." Yeah, guess what? I played golf with like a broken back yesterday. I said I was good to go. I was not good to go. I did not feel good. I should not have done that. People are stupid. Athletes are competitive. They're going to want to be out there. Sometimes you got to like pull back on guys. And that may be why Spencer Turnbull misses his next start. We'll see what happens with that. That brings us to the next problem, right? If Spencer Turnbull misses his next start, what in the world do the Phillies do? Do they go back to Taijuan Walker that quick? No. I can't imagine they do that. So who else can start? You don't have anyone else in the pen that's really going to start. Matt Strahm would be a great option. You might be saying, Matt Strahm, he did this last year. Guess what? Matt Strahm's one of the best relievers in baseball. You're not pulling him out of the bullpen. You're not. He's unbelievable in the bullpen. He's a major asset in his current role. He will not go to the starting rotation. Who else is out there? Jose Alvarado, basically your closer. Jeff Hoffman, basically your closer. I don't know. They share that role. Ryan Kirkring, no. Short reliever. Gregory Soto, no. Seranthony Dominguez, no. Jose Ruiz, no. We're going through all these names. It's just like, no. And this is better to find an option at the major league level right now than call somebody else up because that would be a corresponding roster move. And then you think, what about the kid, Michael Mercado? Just made his major league debut. And yeah, he was a starter in the minors. Was pretty good too when he got called up. Now I got moved to the bullpen because there was no need in the rotation, but they believed the stuff was good enough to translate to the major league bullpen at this time. Well, kid, you might be getting your feet wet in a big way. It might be straight out of the frying pan into the fire for Michael Mercado, to quote Jay-Z, shout out Hove. I think he said fresh out the frying pan. Whatever. Michael Mercado might get that spot in the rotation. And the reason why is he might be the only guy available to switch roles that actually has major starting experience recently. So now your rotation could be top ERA leader, Zach Wheeler, top ERA leader, Ranger Suarez, top ERA leader, Christopher Sanchez, top ERA leader, Aaron Nola. And then this dude who's pitched like one inning in his career, Michael Mercado. He looked good, I guess, in that one inning, but that kind of shows you what type of a spot the Philadelphia Phillies are in. Now, I will say this. I think I could pitch in the fifth spot in the rotation for the Philadelphia Phillies right now, and they'd still be able to win consistently. Not on days I started, but they'll still be able to do enough that their season doesn't collapse. And ultimately, whoever's in the fifth spot in the rotation is not throwing in the postseason. So this isn't like, oh, man, how do we survive this? How do we survive this for the rest of the season? I don't think any of these issues with Taijuan Walker or Spencer Turnbull are going to be season-ending, season-changing, any of that. So these are minor issues, but that fifth spot in the rotation has become potentially cursed. And it was funny. I was listening to Spencer Turnbull, like funny in the ironic Alanis Morissette type of way. I was listening to Spencer Turnbull after the game and his post-game comments. He had played in Detroit before this. He had been often injured in Detroit. He had weird stuff with that organization. The story has never really come out, but he said they sent him down while he was injured and they couldn't do that. And he's not tight with the people in the Detroit organization. He likes some of the players and the coaches, but there's some bad blood there still. And the fact that he goes back to Detroit and immediately gets injured pitching there, he's just he literally said, when I get back to Philly, maybe I'll just feel better there because I think this place is cursed. So that sucks. You hate to see that for Spencer Turnbull. You feel for the guy. He's done everything he's been asked to do this year, and hopefully this isn't something serious. So we'll keep you updated on the status of one Spencer Turnbull. Coming up, we're also going to take a trip down memory lane because not only is Spencer Turnbull thinking about his time in Detroit when he plays against the Tigers, the Phillies are probably thinking a little bit about a trade that they made ahead of the last season, not this season, last season, where Gregory Soto was acquired and Matt Vierling and other pieces were sent to Detroit. We're going to relitigate that trade just because I think it'll be fun to look at what's going on. And with the Phillies needing outfielders, could Matt Vierling have been a fit on this team? Well, we'll discuss that coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. All right, we got to talk about our friends over at Tax Network USA because they can really help you out. Here on Locked On Phillies, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round, this job. And you know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season's over doesn't mean the IRS is going to stop coming after you. I mean, if you have unfiled taxes, they are going to come after you nonstop. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. You don't want to be in their crosshairs. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. They'll take care of the business. All you have to do is give them a ring. They've got over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau. Tax Network USA has saved their clients over 1 million. Oh, sorry, I misspoke. Not 1 million. 100 million. Nope, sorry, I misspoke again. $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, maybe you have complicated matters that require tax planning, hard stuff to file, or maybe you just finally hit that big parlay this season. You need help correctly filing your winnings. Either way, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. And you could also see the link in the description of this episode for a little more info on our friends at Tax Network USA. I also want to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. There's a little graphic down there. Prize Picks is the best. You know Prize Picks so well. If you're going to play daily fantasy sports, well, you might as well do it with America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. They've got over 5 million active members on Prize Picks, and I'm about to tell you why. Well, it's simple. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, you're not playing against other players. You don't have to hit 1,000% or anything like that. No, you just need to pick more or less on a handful of stats, and you can get your winnings quickly, easily on selecting right options. Here's what you do, right? You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. What are the correct picks? Well, you look through player stats on a bevy of different options. It could be baseball stats, like the Phillies state. For example, if you had over Brandon Marsh, if you picked more than 0.5 hits for Brandon Marsh, he had 4. If you had picked more than 0.5 RBIs for Brandon Marsh, he had 4. That's all you have to do. Maybe today was the Brandon Marsh Prize Picks day. Bottom line, you mix a couple of those together, you can win 100 times your money. Let's say you made 4 correct picks. $10 turns into $1,000. Prize Picks is the best. And if you're looking for promotions, well, they've got you covered every week. From lowering selected players, I should say. Well, dyslexic today. Selected players' stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. I mean, special days of the week, that's music to my ears. I love a little promo. I love a little promotion, and that's perfect for me. But I've got an even better one for you, too. Because there's a billion things to do on Prize Picks. It's not just baseball. You could do any sports, e-gaming or esports, I guess. You can tell I'm not an esports player, but you could do esports. They got everything. And they've also got $100 to give to you. You download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB. You get a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Just pick more or pick less. It's Prize Picks. Folks, it's that easy. All right, let's relitigate this Matt Vierling, Gregory Soto trade. There was more to it, so I'm going to read you the actual details, but this was ahead of the 2023 season. So we've only seen about a year and a half of data on whether or not this trade has worked out and how exactly things have played. And it's not just Matt Vierling, Greg Soto, right? There are other interesting parts of this trade that you have to answer about if you're going to relitigate it. But here are the details of the trade. So Matt Vierling and Nick Maton were traded to the Detroit Tigers in a 3-for-2 trade. So they got back, listen to this, Gregory Soto, but you might forget, Cody Clemens also came back to the Philadelphia Phillies in that trade. That's a pretty darn good pickup. So I don't know how much I value Cody Clemens compared to Matt Vierling, compared to Nick Maton. It's very hard to look at these utility players where you only remember moments and you don't really remember them being used heavily to go ahead and evaluate what the trade was. But let's basically look at it. And a minor league catcher went back as well in the deal. Like, not really anything crazy that you're looking at there. Not a guy that you're going to miss. Donnie Sands was the guy who went to Detroit as the third player for the Philadelphia Phillies. So basically, one more time. Maton, Vierling, Donnie Sands for Gregory Soto and Cody Clemens. I would say that Cody Clemens is a significant upgrade over Nick Maton. He just is. He plays multiple positions. I think he's a better overall hitter. I think he's shown that he can be more clutch. I like Nick Maton, but Nick Maton isn't doing anything right now. But here's where it gets interesting. Gregory Soto, since joining the Phillies, has been underwhelming. He hasn't really found a role in the bullpen. It seems that every other appearance for him is a gas can waiting to explode. And it's not that he doesn't have the talent. He'll have stretches where he's really good. I mean, he's got a career 4.23 ERA, and he's got a 4.07 ERA this year. So I guess it's kind of on par for where you'd expect him to be. But he was a two-time All-Star in Detroit. He's still young. I mean, he's only 29 years old. That's young for reliever standards. These guys pitch the like 40. But the last 2 years he was in Detroit, 21 and 22, it was a 3.39 ERA and a 3.28 ERA. In Philly, it's been a 4.62 and a 4.07. So needless to say, Gregory Soto has underperformed. Do you need Gregory Soto in this bullpen? I'm not saying like get rid of him, but I'm just saying if you existed in a world where this trade didn't happen, would you be okay? I think they would be, honestly. It also hurts to kind of look at Matt Vierling and see what he's doing. Now, don't get too caught up in what he did this series. He had a bomb home run today. It might be like, oh, okay, well, clearly this guy's good. We should have kept him. Here are the numbers so far for this year. Batting .250. He's got 9 home runs. 63 hits and 252 at-bats. I mean, when you just look at the overall batting this year for his time in Detroit, he struck out 60 times, walked 12, so it's not really a good strikeout-to-walk ratio there. His on-base percentage is low because of it, 285. Slugging 433, and that's because of the home runs there. OPS 717. I don't know, man. Like, see, that's the tough thing. And this is a great conversation to have, right? Because it should set up the type of player you need to acquire at the trade deadline. If you ask me, would I do the Matt Vierling trade again? Yeah, flip a coin. I don't know. Go 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. I don't think the Phillies got worse. I don't think they got better. I think it was a trade that was underwhelming for both sides. Maybe not for the Tigers because they were like, hey, we'll take a shot on guys that could project to be something because they weren't that good when the trade was made 2 years ago. They're not much better now. But when you look at an outfielder to acquire, those numbers from Matt Vierling do not strike me as like, oh, I would like to have that guy back. He's not going to be worse than anyone you have. He's probably not going to be better than a lot of the guys you have. He'll be better than Pache. He'll be better than Merrifield has been this year, but Merrifield has more of a resume. He's not better than Brandon Marsh. He's not better than Nick Castellanos. I don't know, man. So what is Matt Vierling? And that's not a knock on him. I'm not taking a direct shot at Matt Vierling. I'm saying if you acquire someone at the deadline, you got to have him getting like 270. You got to have him have a little bit of pop. You got to have him be a plus defender. I think Matt Vierling's a nice defender, but not like a plus defender. Mid isn't going to do it. And all due respect to Matt Vierling, he's a middle of the pack Major League Baseball player. In order for you to make a move at the deadline, you better be getting more than that. And I'm not saying like Vierling's on the table or that I would ever advocate for the Phillies trading back for him. It was just a great example to think about what a trade for an outfielder could look like if the Phillies potentially made a mistake by moving on from one 2 years ago. And, well, what you have to do at the deadline to make sure that you got better guys than that out there come postseason. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. In tomorrow's episode, we got a preview of a 4-game series with the Miami Marlins. A great opportunity for the Philadelphia Phillies to continue to beat up on the NL East. A bit of trouble with how the bullpen shakes out, and we'll give you an update on the Spencer Turnbull injury if we get it. But also, you need to hear in tomorrow's episode the breakdown of the pitching matchups in this series. We could be heading for an all-timer, an all-time domination series, potentially tomorrow. So we'll discuss. We'll get into all of it. A lot of fun stuff, but that's all for today's episode. Thank you again for checking us out. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that stuff that really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. And I will talk to you next time on our next episode.